in that example, the guy was a guy whose mother had been problematically obese. And she had kind of let her life go into this sort of sea of passivity and self-indulgence in a way that had taken her away from being a mother and being a wife. And I mean, he'd really seen her life go downhill because she wasn't able to contend with her own kind of hunger and passivity. So every time he would see his wife gain a few pounds, that image of his mother would come up in his head. So where's that criticism coming from in him in that moment? You know, is it coming from a kind of legitimate concern for his wife? Or is it coming from a place of anxiety that's just his own, about his own history, his own scripts that he's imposing on her? And I think that there is a place in marriages and a place in relationships for trying to find a way to say whatever it is you feel, whatever it is you want. But you got to discriminate between what is legitimate caring for another person, what is, as politically problematic as it might be, a kind of legitimate wish that your spouse lose a few pounds, because that's part of life too, versus what is a kind of being out of touch with your own anxieties and then acting that out in your criticisms because there's really an anxiety in your own self that you can't contend with. And that, I think, was what I was trying to get at in that anecdote.
I just wonder, is there really a good way to criticize the other person without them taking it the wrong way?
Well, I think you got to define good. I mean, is there a way to criticize another person where they're not going to feel defensive and irritated and, you know, usually not, right? But is defensiveness and irritation and all that stuff necessarily a bad thing? And I would argue not really. I mean, it can be part of the dynamic of a relationship. I mean, look, if you say, you know, this may sound a little dicey and you'd have to really work on something to get here, but if you say, you know what, I want to talk about this. I totally understand you have a right to eat whatever you want to eat. And but at the same time, I love the way you look when you're a little thinner. Call me a pig, but I do. And also, when you do that, it takes me back to this place where I feel like I'm with some woman who's going to just completely lose herself to this kind of other power. And I know that's not you. I really get that, but I have those feelings. I mean, that's potentially the beginning of a difficult but good conversation.
No. But how many people have that difficult but good conversation? Because that's a tough one, right?
But more people can have it than think they do. That's what I'm arguing. See, one of the things I'm really pushing at in this book is, look, I don't think, despite the title, that everybody should stay married. I don't think that marriage is necessarily, in and of itself, a good thing. In fact, the research that everybody quotes as saying marriage is good for you, we were talking about this before we started, actually it's good for men. If you really look at the stats and you break them down, women who are married tend to be less happy than women who are unmarried, while men who are married tend to be more happy than men who are unmarried. It's asymmetrical in its benefit. So I think even the argument that marriage itself is a good thing is deeply problematic. I think it can be a good thing, but it means really being willing to take some risks together and to go to places that are uncomfortable to go to. And that's, I think, what I'm trying to argue about. And I think more people can do that than think they can.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.